Next man up, 1025 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you on this Monday, broadcasting live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Hope everyone out there had a great weekend. Hope everybody's staying warm because it is miserable out there right now. The good news is I think it's supposed to warm up this afternoon, and it'll be back in the 50s for the rest of the week. But, man, yesterday and today have been rough. So it was a good day yesterday to just sit inside and watch a whole lot of football. Got to say, it was a really weird day in the NFL across the board. The injuries, of course, and we'll talk about Patrick Mahomes, who will not be on the field at Nissan Stadium on Sunday when the Chiefs come to town, as Kansas City eliminated from playoff contention for the first time since December of 2014. Their first game with nothing to play for since then will be here in Nashville against the Titans. Micah Parsons also looks like he tore his ACL. Very tough on the injury front. Phillip Rivers makes his return to the NFL. And Patriots-Bills, what a game we had there. Patriots jump out to an early lead. Bills end up coming back to get the win. It was a great day to, again, just sit on the couch and enjoy some football, although it was a strange day, Parker.
Yeah, no, it was a good weekend nonetheless. I have a lot on my heart to share today. I am under the weather. I'm very congested. The cold weather is taking a serious toll on me. I'm loaded up with Mucinex. I have my hot tea ready to go, trying to drink as much water as I can, but I will push through as good soldiers do.
I appreciate you battling through it. I am lucky, knock on wood, not to have caught anything yet. It's that time of the year. But we got 3 games this week for Vandy, plus the 5 shows. So I would like to stay healthy this week.
You can't afford to get sick.
If I can get through this week, I'll be okay. But yeah, we got 3 Vandy games this week, including tonight against South Florida. If you're looking for something to do, 6:30 tip out there at Memorial Gym. But let's go into the Titans. They fall in Santa Clara. And for the 12th straight time after a win, they lose. Still do not have back-to-back wins since November of 2022. Titans remain in the 3rd spot in the NFL draft order as of right now, as the Giants and Raiders both fell. And, man, before we get into the Titans, the Raiders, I really find it hard to believe the Raiders are going to win another game. We talked about it last week of, hey, who knows? It's the NFL. Maybe the Raiders can be in a close one with the Eagles late, and they lose 31-0. They are the first team to be shut out twice in a season since 2000 when the Cleveland Browns did it. So there you go. That is how bad the Raiders are right now. I really can't imagine them winning another game, which means they would get the number 1 overall pick in the draft.
Yeah, because in the NFL, the tiebreaker is not head-to-head. It's, what is it, common opponents, record versus common opponents?
It's a strength of schedule.
Strength of schedule, that's what it was. So yeah.
Strength of schedule. Right now, the Titans' strength of schedule is 576, Vegas 548. So they would have it. It would probably take a large amount of games going the Titans' way to get that anywhere close. So if the Raiders are to lose out, they would pick first. If the Titans were to lose out, they could pick no lower than second. But the Titans did lose to the 49ers yesterday. I thought the offense hung in there a little bit. The defense could not get off the field to save their lives. 7 straight 3rd down conversions to start the game. It was 8 of 10 at one point. I didn't check the final numbers because at that point it was kind of garbage time. But they had 8 of 10, and they converted a 4th down on the sneak after Mike McCoy won the challenge. So really 9 out of 10 times on a set of downs, they were able to move the chains. The safety injuries early were tough. I mean, who would have thought you'd lose 3 safeties all within like the first quarter? Xavier Woods, Kevin Winston,
Mike Brown
all went out in the first 10 minutes of the game, which you don't really want to have Kendall Brooks out there playing meaningful snaps for your team. And they could not get off the field to save their lives. It didn't matter. Yeah, most of the time the 49ers were ahead of the chains, but even they had them at 3rd and 13 a couple of times, and they still found a way to get a first down. And that was the big difference yesterday. The Titans defense just could not slow down that 49ers attack with George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey. I thought Ricky Pearsall looked great in that game, despite dealing with some ankle stuff throughout the contest. But Titans defense gets gashed. The run game on the offensive side, I thought, looked solid again. Tony Pollard, I gotta apologize again to Tony Pollard, because it was maybe 3 weeks ago that I was saying he might be over the mountain, a little bit washed at this point, and he has come back with a vengeance the last 2 games. He's looked really good. 100 yards again yesterday, or at least close to it. Another touchdown. Tony Pollard has found new life over the last couple of weeks for the Titans.
He heard what you said, and you gave him bulletin board material.
I really doubt that, but if he did, that's great, because I would love to see him running the football better, which he has the last couple of weeks.
No, the Titans need it because they were so one-dimensional before.
Right.
We didn't know what the identity was. But as far as the 49ers were concerned, third down, you're right, was the difference yesterday. They're one of the best teams in the league on third down. And the Titans, what was it? The 49ers had 5 straight trips where they either had a touchdown or a field goal at one point.
They scored on their first 5 drives of the game.
Yep.
4 touchdowns, 1 field goal.
Yeah. So you couldn't get a stop, and by that point, it was all garbage time.
Yeah. Let me see. Where did they actually end up in terms of third down conversions? The 49ers were 9 of 15 on third downs. So I guess after starting 7 for 7, they were only 2 for 8 the rest of the game. But at that point, like you said, they had already scored on their first 5 games, drives of the game, and there really wasn't much to do. But for the Titans, you got to give credit to the offense. I thought that they have at least looked competent the last 2 weeks, right? You put up 31 against the Browns. You put up 24 this week against the 49ers. The Titans could not run the ball at all for most of this season. You look back at the Seahawks game where Cam Ward was the leading rusher. The Jaguars game, the running backs had 11 carries for 61 yards, and that was it on the day. Yesterday, Tony Pollard looked good again. 14 carries, 104 yards, and a touchdown coming off a career high against the Browns. The run game definitely is a plus for this team right now. I saw this post on Twitter yesterday, and I wanted to ask you, Parker, has the offensive line gotten better since Bill Callahan left?
Shockingly,
I think
yes.
It has, right? Like the offensive line,
it has.
Let's give some credit to the offensive line the last 2 weeks. They have been good, right? Like not perfect. There's been some pressure in Cam's face, and he's had to deal with it. But from a team that was giving up just a ridiculous amount of sacks and could not move the line of scrimmage, could not open holes for their running backs, they've been good the last 2 weeks. So credit to the offensive line, especially playing without Dan Moore yesterday.
Only giving up 2 sacks to a good 49ers defense.
Right. And only had 1 against the Browns last week.
Yep.
So you'll take that every day of the week,
Absolutely.
Considering this team was averaging like 4 sacks a game through the first 10 weeks of the season. Last little note that I wanted to talk about, because we're going to dive in hard on Cam Ward's day coming up for the rest of this first hour. We'll also get into the defense a little bit more later in the show. But the sack fumble from Jeffrey Simmons, it has finally happened. The Titans have gotten the call on that play. I mean, it's been 3 years of every single time there's the question of, was his arm moving forward? Whatever side the Titans were on, it was going to go against them. If the Titans made the play defensively, it was incomplete. If the Titans had it on the offensive side, Josh Dobbs, it was going to be a fumble. It happened at least like 7 times since the Josh Dobbs one, which everybody remembers. And finally yesterday, Jeffrey Simmons just got a piece of the ball before Brock Purdy's arm went forward and ends up setting up his own touchdown. So, I'm just so happy that they finally got one, and I can stop with every time that play happens, it's going against the Titans. It finally worked out.
Because every time you mention that, I always think of the Josh Dobbs. That is the main one I think
of.
The
Josh Dobbs, but there was also Derek Carr against the Saints a couple years ago.
Yeah. Was that week 1?
It was week 1, and I believe it got taken back for a touchdown by Amani Hooker, or it would have been taken back for a touchdown, but they blew it dead, ended up calling it an incomplete pass in the end. There's been at least 2 or 3 others that I can't think of off the top of my head right now, but they finally got one. And then Jeffrey Simmons with one of the strangest scramble drill touchdowns you'll ever see. Big number 98 knew how to find space in the end zone, and Cam Ward found him. Jeffrey Simmons, again, we gave him his flowers last week on Monday. I'll do it again. 9 sacks, a new career high. He's going to get to double digits for the first time in his career. Making plays on the offensive end. Now has more career receiving touchdowns than Treylon Burks. at least with the Titans. Excuse me, he did have the one with the 49 or with the Commanders a couple weeks ago. But Jeffrey Simmons, if he could just stop hitting the long snapper on field goals, there wouldn't be much to complain about with Jeffrey Simmons. And I would argue to Bones Fossil, just take him off that unit. I know that it's not intentional. Like you can look and say he's going and trying to get to the ball and it's incidental contact, maybe a little bit of a weak call, but it's something that clearly has been made a priority for the officials, right? Is to protect the long snapper on these plays. And Jeffrey Simmons has been called for it at least 4 or 5 times, right? In his career.
Yeah, when I saw that there was a penalty, I knew exactly.
Right.
I knew exactly
No,
what was going to happen.
as soon as the flag went up, I was like, Jeff did it again. And of course, that was the call. The one that I always remember is the one that kind of started the slide for the Titans back in 2022. It was against the Bengals, right? Where he did it, hit the long snapper. Field goal would have made it a 7-point game, and Tannehill would have gotten a chance to go down the field and tie it. Instead, the Bengals were able to just kneel out the clock. That was the first time it happened. I think it's happened at least 4 or 5 times.
Were you at that game?
I was at that
I
game.
was at that game too.
I'll
never forget it.
I remember sitting there, and I was sitting next to some Bengals fans. And at that point, the Titans were 7-3. And I was like, it's okay. We'll be fine. We're still going to win the division. Don't worry about it. We're just 7-4 now. Little did I know they would not win a game the rest of the year. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. If you want to text or call any thoughts on the Titans, we'll take them on our phone and text lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. We will talk a ton of Titans during the show. Going to dive in on Cam Ward next. We also will talk about Diego Pavia coming up short of the Heisman Trophy and some of the reaction from him and from others about that as well. That's coming up in the 10 o'clock hour, but we will talk Cam Ward on the other side. Another up and down day for the first overall pick. Some good, some bad. We'll get into all of it. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. That was Mike McCoy yesterday after the game talking about the two deep throws to Van Jefferson. One of them ended up being complete. One of them was not. And we're going to dive in on both of those throws in this segment. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. I did want to mention before we get into the Titans, a little bit of breaking news in the college football world. Parker, have you seen this?
Fill me in.
Florida quarterback DJ Lagway plans to enter the transfer portal. Not a huge shocker there.
Really?
But
that's not really a huge shocker, but I will say John Sumrall said in his press conference that despite him being a defensive guy, he wanted to light up the scoreboard this year. So I thought that might be enough to keep Lagway, but not a surprise.
Lagway, I think he'll be a pretty sought-after player in the portal. I mean, it's a former five-star recruit, clearly has talent as a runner and thrower of the football. So we'll see where he ends up, but he has entered the transfer portal. So plans to enter the transfer portal, which again doesn't open till January 2nd, but going to be one of the names to watch once we get to that open window after the new year. But with Cam Ward, the deep ball accuracy is something we highlighted last week. It has just not been good enough. And the one thing that I was advocating for is you've got to give your wide receivers a chance. You have to put it in a spot for your guy to go make a play, especially on the open throws downfield. The Chimdike throw last week against the Browns, where he is wide open and you didn't give him a chance because you overthrew it. And almost an identical result on that throw at the end of the half to Van Jefferson yesterday. Great double move from Van Jefferson, wide open down the sideline. And this is a huge moment in the game. You're down by 7. Your defense had just finally held for a field goal and gotten you an opportunity to go down the field and see if you could get points before the half. You end up getting none because Joey Sly misses the field goal. But you could have had 7 if Cam just put it anywhere close to Van Jefferson. And it was a complete and total miss. And these are the throws that we're talking about with Cam Ward that he has to be able to hit. And there were bodies in front of him. I get it that maybe there wasn't a whole lot of space for him to step into that throw, but the issue has come from him throwing off his back foot. And he did it again there, threw off his back foot and just overshot Van Jefferson. And again, if you give him a chance, if you make a bad throw that Van Jefferson has to adjust to, maybe he doesn't get into the end zone, but he still has a chance to make a catch and get you inside the 5 with time to try and put the ball in the end zone before the end of the half. But instead, you throw it beyond out of bounds and beyond the white out of bounds. And Van Jefferson had zero chance to go make a play on the football. And it just can't happen. It cannot happen. Now, the other throw downfield to Van Jefferson that ended up setting up the touchdown that Jefferson went up and caught. Also, not a good throw from Cam Ward. It was significantly underthrown. But the difference is he let Van Jefferson go make a play on the football. And I'm not saying that that was a good throw from Cam Ward, because if he throws it well, it's probably a touchdown at the back of the end zone, and Van Jefferson never has to go leap up among 2 defenders and make a play. But it was a throw that Van Jefferson could make a play on, and that is the bare minimum that you need from Cam Ward on these deep balls right now, is you have to give your wide receiver a chance to make a play.
That is the concerning part, and there have been several members or people that have called into this show and have been very critical of Cam Ward. One is actually on our call screen right now.
I see it.
But I will say about Cam Ward, you got to hit the layups, and that's very concerning. The accuracy, there have been several accuracy issues, could be tied to his feet. You got to hit the layups. Got to hit the layups.
There just doesn't seem to be a whole lot of feel for the deep ball, and it's concerning because I don't know if it's not having chemistry with these guys or just not having any kind of rhythm for how much you got to put on it. But he's had a couple of good throws downfield this year. I'm not saying that all of them have been bad. Like the Chimdike touchdown against the Patriots. That one was perfect. The Calvin Ridley throw down the sideline to set up the game winner against Arizona. That one was perfect. But he's missing too many of these wide open throws. And that's something that you need to have as an NFL quarterback. When the defense makes a mistake, you have to make them pay. You have to.
And it's kind of like I was watching the Sunday night game with JJ McCarthy last night, and not everything has to be 150-mile-per-hour fastball with
Right.
Cam Ward. And I want to see this develop over his next 3 years in Nashville, is put some touch on the football. That was an excellent opportunity to put some touch. It was a laser beam. Not everything has to be a laser beam.
Right. Even if Van Jefferson has to wait on it for a second, it's still a huge play that sets you up at the end of the half. But you rip it over his head and he has no chance to make the play. And that's going to be my main concern in the offseason for Cam Ward is, can whoever the next coach is, along with Cam Ward's personal quarterback coach, can you make the adjustments with his footwork and his release to start hitting those open shots? Because again, not that you're going to hit every throw. Good quarterbacks around the league miss open receivers all the time, but you can't do it all the time, right? Like you can miss one every once in a while, but for the most part in the NFL, if a defense blows a coverage like that and you have a wide open receiver, you got to put it on him.
And then there's the example where he made an incredible play on the scramble drill, threw it to Chimdike, and it hit him right in the hands and he dropped it. So you have several examples, but with Cam Ward, there are going to be several down points in your career, especially as a rookie. But when the layups are there, you got to hit them.
Yep. And it's 2 weeks in a row now that's the play you can point to from Cam Ward's day. I thought overall the last 2 games, he hasn't looked horrible, right? I thought he has done some good things each of the last 2 games, but twice he's had 7 points if he just gives his receiver a chance to make a play, and he just completely missed them. Not even close. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Let's go to our phone lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Adam from Portland is on the line. Adam, thanks for calling. What you got?
Jay, got a couple things, man. Number one, there's a player on this team who I think has gotten a lot better and has turned into a good player. Does anybody jump out off the screen whenever I say that to you?
Gunnar Helm?
No, the other one, Chig. I think Chig's turned into a good player, man.
No, that's a good point.
I see progress with him, and I was the most critical of Chig, but I see him blocking better. It seems like everything you throw to him, he makes plays after the catch. And so I just wanted to give him a little bit of love because everybody pretty much sucks, except but I see growth in him. Like I'm like, okay, Chig's doing better. The problem I got from yesterday, which by the way, I'm super depressed. That's what I said earlier, man. I'm just like with the team, I'm just like, oh please, season could not end quick enough. But yesterday, all right, I get it. Jeffrey Simmons is awesome with that strip sack. Is there a dumber player in special teams history than Jeffrey Simmons? Because he keeps doing that. He has to have a record, right? Like, there's no way somebody's done it as much as he has as far as hitting the long snapper. He doesn't understand it or something because he hits them every time. Like, he gets a chance, he's going to hit that long snapper. It cost us, man. Like, it keeps costing us with that. So I don't know if you can address both of those.
Yeah, Adam, I agree with you on Chig. I think that if you're looking for an easy solution at tight end with the way Gunnar Helm is developing and what you've seen from Chig this year, sign Chig to a cheap 2-year contract. I think that's all he's going to get. And I think that is at least a Band-Aid for your tight end position to see what Gunnar Helm is long-term, right? Is Gunnar Helm going to develop into a quality starting level tight end? You got to give him time. But it also allows you the flexibility of next year, if you have the draft capital and there's a tight end you like that you think can be an upgrade over those two, you can still take them without having any kind of long-term, commitment to a tight end if you have to go sign a guy in free agency or having to use one of your early picks this year on a tight end. I think a Chig and Gunnar duo at tight end is fine for next year.
I think of like a Colston Loveland, Cole Kmet situation where you drafted Colston Loveland with the 10th overall pick for a reason because you want him to be that guy for Caleb Williams to kind of help him develop. I think Gunnar Helm, and I've said this with TD going all the way back to when he was drafted, but I think Gunnar Helm is going to be the safety blanket for Cam Ward like he was for Quinn Ewers when he was at Texas. Chig Okonkwo, we know what he is as a blocker at this point. He's not a very good blocker, but he's very athletic, and there are ways that you can get him the football and him be productive. He's the leading receiver on this team. So I like that idea. Sign him to a 2-year cheap deal. Get him the football.
Chris in Nashville does make a good point. Chig missed the block on the wide receiver screen every time. Yeah, he did mess one up on screen to Chim yesterday. I want to point out David Martin Robinson on one of Tony Pollard's runs. I want to say it was like the 20-yarder down the left sideline. He absolutely bullied someone.
Oh yeah, I remember. I remember that play.
DMR, he took him about 10 yards down the field and then disengaged. And then the guy tried to go in the back door and chase down Pollard, and DMR pancaked him. It was impressive to watch. And on the second point there from Adam Portland, yeah, I agree. Take Jeffrey Simmons off the field on the field goal block, because like we both said, we saw the flag go in the air and immediate thought, Jeff did it again.
Yep.
He did it again.
There wasn't even a question.
And it's costing the team points. Like, those penalties are not just 15-yard penalties. They missed the field goal. You would have gotten the ball back down 14 with momentum. Not saying you go win the game, but you had just gotten the strip sack and you had just scored, and then you get the missed field goal. The momentum was in your direction, and then it completely took the life out of the Titans with about 10 minutes left in the game. Cannot happen. Cannot happen. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. We will get to your phones on the other side and some of your texts on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Also, some of the good that Cam Ward did yesterday, because there were some really good throws from Cam Ward. Again, not consistent enough, but he did have some good back-to-back weeks with 2 passing touchdowns. Mondays were made for Macero, big screens, bold flavors, and all the football action. From queso to kickoffs, this is how Macero does game night. Macero Football Mondays in 12 South. Don't miss a snap. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. That was Mike McCoy after the game yesterday talking about Big Jeff making a play in the end zone on the scramble drill. Usually the big man touchdowns, it's straight off the play design, run out to the flats, maybe a little pop pass, something like that. But no, Big Jeff rolls out to the side of the end zone, sees the play breaking down, finds some space. Cam Ward hits him for the second receiving touchdown of Jeffrey Simmons' career. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Not something that I would have said I would have expected heading into that game. Big Jeff making a play like that. And Cam Ward, as much as the cardinal sin of playing quarterback, and Parker, I'm sure you could speak more to this, is rolling and throwing back to the middle of the field late across your body, Cam Ward seems to have kind of perfected that. Some of the best plays he's made this year have been rolling right, looking back, making a play back over the middle of the field. The Xavier Restrepo catch on third down against Seattle, the Alec Iamaner touchdown against the Rams, and of course, right there with Jeffrey Simmons in the back of the end zone.
And it's so funny because that's what quarterbacks are taught, not to throw back across your body into the middle of the field. That line is becoming more and more blurred because when you have a talented quarterback like Cam Ward and Mahomes, who has kind of made that popular, it just really depends on your level of talent now. Because if I were to try that, I probably would have gotten benched. But Cam Ward can do that, and if it works out, everyone praises him for it. So that line is becoming increasingly more blurred, but technically, by rule, you're not supposed to do that.
Right. It's one of those things that Cam Ward will be destroyed for if he ends up throwing a pick on one of them. But so far, it's worked out for him. Every single time he's done it, it's seemingly worked out. I guess he did have the one yesterday. He was looking for Van Jefferson on a similar play, and it got batted down. But has not been a disaster yet on that play at the very least. 615-737-1025. Let's go back to our phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Trey is on the line. Trey, thanks for calling. Thanks for waiting. What you got for us today?
Good morning, guys. I just wanted to say, hey, yesterday afternoon I watched a couple series of the Titans, and I was watching Cam Ward, and it seems like to me he's very indecisive on his procedures on what he needs to do out there on the field. There was one case where he was scrambling in the backfield. Tim DK was open on your right-hand side. It wouldn't have made much yardage, but it would have protected, him from having to do everything that he did back there. But I just say the decisiveness, man, of not being able to, complete the task of what the coach is having you do. If you have 20 plays in the front end of what you need to do to order to get the ball down the field and you can't run 25% of them, is that the coach's fault? Is that the offensive line fault? Is that the receiver's fault? Or is that the quarterback's fault? It's kind of percentage of all of them, but Cam needs to be able to master most of what the coach want him to do. And it ain't like it's hard stuff. Everybody run the same plays. Why can't he run the plays that everybody else is running? They all run the same plays. It's just who has the better players. And y'all have a good day. Thank you.
Thanks for the call, Trey. And in fact, Trey is correct on Cam Ward yesterday.
I was about to say
that was the longest time to throw in his career so far, I want to say. I saw this yesterday on Twitter somewhere, but I'm looking for it. I believe that was the longest time that he's had to throw. And that is skewed by those two plays that we were just talking about. The Chim DK throw where he rolls out and, had to run around for a while, and the throw to Jeffrey Simmons in the back of the end zone. So is skewed a little bit, but yes, Cam Ward held on to the ball a long time yesterday. He had the protection to yesterday for the most part, but yes, that is something with Cam Ward that you'd like to see him be more decisive. Top of his drop, ball is out. And is it that no one's open? I'm sure that's it on some plays. But you also would like to see him go through his reads quicker, be more decisive, make a throw. And there wasn't enough of that yesterday. A lot of the plays that he was making were kind of out of the rhythm of the offense. Although the play to Gunnar Helm down the sideline, that was a really nice throw from Cam Ward. And some people I've seen saying that, Gunnar Helm had to reach down and come back for it. If Cam threw that anywhere else, the safety was closing, right? You had to throw that away from the safety. He held the safety with his eyes, made the throw away. Gunnar Helm catches, gets into the end zone. I don't think that's a touchdown if Cam Ward throws it anywhere else. So I thought that was probably the best throw of the day from Cam Ward. And you love the Gunnar Helm route there, the out and up to get down the sideline, found the space in the defense. And then again, the adjustment of, hey, ball is to my left a little bit, spin, and still being able to get into the end zone. I thought that was a great play. Cam Ward, again, was not good enough yesterday, but there were some flashes of good from Cam, and that was probably his best play of the day.
Yeah, no, Trey's actually kind of right with this call, surprisingly, because with Josh, you think about Josh Heupel and the system that he runs at Tennessee and what he was able to do with Nico. He would call the plays, and most of the time the receiver would be open, but he couldn't help that Nico would either overthrow or just flat out miss his guy.
Right.
So, it would be easy for the casual fan to blame the play calling, but realistically, you look at it and Nico just missed the guy. Well, yesterday, the play was there. Cam Ward just missed him. So, really, most of that is on Cam Ward because you got to hit your layups. But that doesn't completely absolve the play calling some of the times.
Yeah, and we can talk about that coming up next. I thought there were some rough play calls from Bo Hardegree yesterday. He hasn't been horrible. There's been a lot of good with Bo Hardegree, but he gets cute at the worst times, and we can talk about that coming up next. I have an issue with some of the play design, and we can talk about that too. Some of these plays, the spacing looks off, and I don't know if that's the design or just people not being where they're supposed to be, but we'll get into that coming up next. 615-737-1025 is the phone number if you want to text or call. We're going to give away some Preds tickets later on in the show as well, so make sure you stick around for that. We'll also talk some college football. Diego Pavia finishes second in the Heisman voting. Lots of discourse around Diego Pavia this weekend. We'll get into all of it. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 1025 The Game. Chase and Big Joe will be broadcasting live at the all-new Circus Sportsbook Kentucky in the Mint Gaming Hall today prior to the Monday Night Football game. This week's matchup is the Dolphins and the Steelers. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you on this Monday morning. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Diving in on the Titans, and we will talk college football coming up at the top of the hour. Diego Pavia finishing second to Fernando Mendoza in the Heisman voting. We'll talk about that. The behavior after from Diego Pavia, and also the college football playoff getting underway this weekend. We will give some early thoughts on some of those games as well. But with the Titans offense, Bo Hardegree's play calling and some of the play design things, it's not all bad, right? Like, I think Bo Hardegree has had some decent feel for game flow, and the run and the pass have been married well together. I think there's been some good with Bo Hardegree, but he continues to get cute at kind of the worst times possible. Things are starting to work. The run game is working. Cam seems to be in some rhythm. He completed 9 straight passes at one point yesterday. And then you call that jet sweep to Chimdike on 1st and goal from the 5. Knocks you back. You end up having to settle for a field goal. I just don't get it. And then later in the game, 3rd and 8 screen, we talked about it earlier about Chig missing the block on that one, and that's been an issue for Chig. It could have worked, but on 3rd and 8, I prefer to, try and make a play beyond the sticks rather than hope that the blocking holds up, because guess what? On pretty much every screen pass you've run this year, the blocking hasn't held up. So again, some of the play calling has just, the situational stuff has not been great. Of when he's calling these gimmicky plays, when he's putting the screen game in. And I just wish it's like, something's working. Stick with it. Don't go away from it and try and do something cute, because it cost you points yesterday on that drive that you had 1st and goal to 5. You lose a bunch of yardage on that jet sweep and you end up having to settle for 3.
Yeah, and that's, a lot of the stuff is he was thrown into the fire as a play caller and probably was not ready for it. Actually, he wasn't. I can say that with 100% confidence.
Right. I mean, I don't think he went into this season expecting to be the play caller by week 3.
Right. And he has gotten better in some aspects, like you said, but then also getting cued at the right time. Dude, the screens and the constant jet sweeps to Chimdike every now and again, sure. But when you keep running it and it's not working, throw it out of the playbook. I remember there was this one time in college that we were running a jet sweep to the same guy over and over. And on jet sweeps, you're taught to go outside. He kept cutting it back inside and getting tackled for loss. And yet we kept running it. And eventually I went to my coach. I'm like, why are we running this? It's not working. When something doesn't work, throw it out of the playbook.
Right. And the screen game has been the bane of most Titans fans' existence this year. I can only point to maybe 1 or 2 where you're like, yeah, that was a successful play on the screen game. They should rip it out of the playbook, like you said. And you can't deny that the offense has gotten better since Brian Callahan got fired. And maybe that's more just the young guys in the offense developing, the offensive line starting to play a little bit better. But I would guess there's some causation there, more than just a coincidence. The most the Titans had scored before firing Brian Callahan was 22 in that win against the Cardinals. Since then, they've scored 24 or more 3 times, all of those actually happening in the last 4 weeks. So outside of that Jaguars game, something has started to click with this offense. The run game has looked better. Cam Ward has developed. And I know there are a lot of people who will say Cam Ward still missing those throws downfield. And that is a huge issue, serious problem for him moving forward that has to be addressed. But Cam Ward looks a lot better now than he did in September, which is what you were hoping for. And you hope that by the beginning of next year, some of those other issues start to go away as well. But Cam Ward is starting to produce. He's got multiple touchdowns in each of the last 2 games, 3 out of the last 4. So I think he is starting to make progress, and the offense has come with it. But there still are those little things. And in a game like yesterday's where your defense couldn't stop a runny nose for most of that game, the offense cannot shoot themselves in the foot with gimmicky, cute plays when you get down inside the 5-yard line ended up costing them 4 points in that game. 615-737-1025 is the phone number if you want to text or call. I also mentioned play design, and on the near interception from Cam, the one that hit Malik Mustafa in the face mask, and not a good decision by Cam Ward. Not a good throw by Cam Ward. But I also am confused by what the play design was there, or maybe it was just the wide receivers didn't run their routes where they were supposed to. But where Cam was throwing that, you almost couldn't tell who he was throwing it to because there were three receivers all in the same area. That's not the first time that this has happened, where the spacing is not good on these routes. And a lot of it does have to do with rookies, whether it's Helm or Iamaner or Chim, where they end up running routes right next to each other and carrying three defenders into the same spot. I don't know if that's the play design. I don't know if it's execution, but that can't happen. And that has nothing to do with the interception. Like Cam Ward, he threw it right to a DB. Even if the guys were where they were supposed to be, I don't know if that changes anything. Van Jefferson also kind of stopped running on that play, but I don't think that would have changed the outcome either. It was just the one play that I could look at and say, what exactly was the goal of that play? Like, where were these routes supposed to be run? Because clearly that is not what that play was designed to do.
Yeah, there were several interceptable balls that Cam Ward threw that just were flat out dropped. I watched. I don't think it was a good day for Cam Ward yesterday, if I'm just being honest.
I think it was an up and down. I would say that the last 2 weeks have been about exactly the same, right? Like you can look at the Browns game and the 49ers game, and both the touchdown passes I thought were pretty good. He missed a wide open touchdown. And then there was some inconsistencies elsewhere. I think I would qualify the last two games as pretty much exactly the same. You give Mustafa that interception, there you go. He's got the interception to Devin Bush. He's got the interception to Malik Mustafa. It was pretty much the same game, which better than it was at the beginning of the year. Again, you look back, there were some games early on where they couldn't get anything going offensively. That Texans game, they get shut out. Cam throws 10 of 26 throwing the football for less than 100 yards. And that's a game where the offense could not get anything going. Yesterday, at the very least, they sustained some drives. They put some points on the board, but it's still not good enough. And Cam Ward, what he's done the last 2 weeks is not good enough to become a franchise quarterback. We've got to see better. And again, that starts with hitting the layups, hitting those open shots downfield. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Brian on the text line says, what's my major concerns with Cam is one, missing the wide open guys as often as he does. But more than that, it's how many balls he gets knocked down by the defensive line. I feel like it's a lot more than other quarterbacks in the league. And that's a fair point too. I don't know. I would assume Kyler Murray has some balls knocked down at the line of scrimmage. He hasn't been playing lately. Russell Wilson when he came into the league. But you are right. Cam Ward only being, 6'1", 6'2", somewhere in there?
Yeah.
He's not the biggest guy. And the sidearm delivery does lead to kind of just firing it right into defensive linemen's hands every once in a while. What game was it? It was the Texans game where they clearly made that a point of emphasis of, hey, you may not get a sack, but get your hands up because Cam's going to pepper it right into the middle of your palm. And it happened 3 or 4 times in the second half alone. That's something that needs to be worked on too. I think this offseason, mechanics has got to be a huge emphasis for Cam Ward. Starts with the feet, but I think you also need to get that arm angle a little more consistent to avoid those batted down passes at the line of scrimmage.
I made a comment last week that I thought a good quarterback for Cam Ward to mimic is Justin Herbert, because Justin Herbert, the thing that he has over Cam Ward is clearly the size. Justin Herbert's 6'6", Cam Ward's 6'1", 6 foot, somewhere in between that range. But Justin Herbert, if you watch his release and you watch the angle, his arm angle when he throws the football, to me, it's perfect. And Cam Ward most of the time has that sidearm delivery, hence why a lot of those balls get batted down. Now, you don't want you kind of want a little bit of an angle in your release. So I think the perfect quarterback for him to watch would be Justin Herbert, because it's like at that perfect 45 degree. So I think that's a perfect guy for him to watch.
Yeah. And I don't think you can completely retool it. Part of that gunslinger mode from
Well, it's
Cam
just
Ward,
it's just raising the angle just a little
right.
bit. That's all it
He's
is.
got a little bit of like the Phillip Rivers angle. I heard Joe and Robbie talking about this today. Like it just looks a little bit funky, but Phillip Rivers made it work. Phillip a little bit bigger than Cam Ward, but can Cam Ward figure out how to
Especially
make it work?
yesterday, he was a lot bigger.
Yes,
than Cam.
yeah. He did not look like an NFL quarterback yesterday in terms of just like looking at him in the uniform. I thought that was hilarious. There was some good from Phillip Rivers. He completed some passes, but it looked like he was having to put in every ounce of his effort into every single time he threw the ball. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Keegan says, my biggest issue with Cam is the organization ruining his mental strength and psyche. Bad plays and mechanics can be fixed. If the organization ruins his head game, he's done for. I think Cam will be okay with that. It's been a tough year all around. I think Cam, if they can surround him with more talent, get a coach in here who can develop him and work towards his strengths, I think his mental side of the game will be fine.
That's what I was thinking about yesterday because I've heard Chase on the Chase and Big Joe say that he's done with the offensive guru type, which I disagree with because just because it didn't work out last time, you just made the wrong hire. That's really what it is. So
That's fair.
I don't think you should be scarred by that. I still think it's okay to go after that offensive guru if you believe that he's the right guy. But ultimately, you're getting somebody in here for Cam Ward because that's what you're banking your future on.
Yeah, I think the right offensive guru would be fine. And obviously, that's easier said than done, finding the right guy. You need a guy who, yes, is good on the offensive side, but brings leadership first. And that's what Mike Borgonzi has said, is they're looking for a leader of men for this room. And if that parlays into being a great offensive mind too, fantastic. That's the ideal scenario. Again, a lot easier said than done. I think that the most likely scenario is you hire a defensive guy who can set the tone, set the culture, and then he brings in one of these up and coming offensive guru guys. I don't have a name off the top of my head, but somebody who has been learning under a McVay or a Shanahan, and he can come in and be your play caller, where he doesn't have to step in and be the head coach. He can focus solely on developing Cam Ward in this offense. 615-737-1025. That'll wrap up hour number one. Actually, I'll get to this one. Lenny, our friend on the text line, says, do you think Cam Ward will be good enough to lead the Titans to the Super Bowl? I don't know. That's why you take him number one, because you think he will. But clearly this year has not been great for the young quarterback. He's got to develop. But no one knows if Cam Ward is going to be good enough to be a franchise quarterback for the Titans to put them in Super Bowl contention. You've just got to wait and see if he can work out some of the kinks and fix these issues and use the natural talent that we've clearly seen that he has. 615-737-1025. That is hour number one for us on this Monday. Coming up next, we'll have the Heisman conversation. Fernando Mendoza from Indiana wins the Heisman Trophy by a landslide over Diego Pavia. We'll talk about the voting results and some of the aftermath from the decision by those Heisman voters as well. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Second hour, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, broadcasting live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Lots of Titans in the first hour. We'll get back into the Titans later in the show after their 37-24 loss to the 49ers yesterday. Now 2-12. They welcome in the Patrick Mahomes-less, eliminated from the playoffs, Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday. Very big difference in this game than what a lot of people might have expected at the beginning of the year. But the Heisman Trophy ceremony, huge topic around town, of course, around the entire country on Saturday. Fernando Mendoza or Diego Pavia? Who was it going to be? And it was a landslide. Fernando Mendoza ran away with it with nearly 700 of the first place votes, over 600 of the first place votes. Diego Pavia got just south of 200, and it was not all that close. Pavia finishes second, and Fernando Mendoza takes home the Heisman Trophy for Indiana. Parker, wanted to get your thoughts on just the complete gap between these two, because we were talking on Friday of could this be one of the closest Heisman races ever, because I felt like there was good arguments for both guys. Pavia statistically had a better season. Mendoza led an Indiana team that heading into the year had the most losses in college football history to a 13-0 record, the number one seed in the college football playoff, and a Big Ten title. Great arguments for both guys. I thought it was going to be close, but it really wasn't. It really was not. Mendoza ran away with it.
Yeah, I'm not surprised because I came in here last week and said that I thought Mendoza was going to win. I would have voted for Pavia. I have some more thoughts on that in just a second, but I thought it was a down year for the Heisman, if we're just being honest, because if you look at Cam Ward's numbers from last year, who finished fourth in the voting, his numbers were better than Mendoza's. Right. Now, the impact that Mendoza has had on Indiana this year, unbelievable. Completely turned Indiana around, have them sitting at number one in the college football playoff. They're going to play in the Rose Bowl, won the Big Ten championship, undefeated, have a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback. It's an incredible story. And Mendoza's speech afterwards was phenomenal. And that's the type of guy that you want to mimic and kind of, live your life after. Fernando Mendoza was 100% deserving of this award.
Yes, 100%. That's what we said last week. I said I would vote for Pavia too. I think Pavia should have won the award if you're looking at the full body of work. But I had no problem with Fernando Mendoza winning the award. I thought it was close. But I agree with you though. All four finalists from last year win the trophy this year. Of course, Travis Hunter, Ashton Jeanty.
Ashton Jeanty would have swept this.
Even Dylan Gabriel probably wins the Heisman from last year with the season that he had at Oregon. So it was a down year for the Heisman, but unlike what Desmond Howard thought should happen, they do give it away every year. They don't just put it away if they don't find anybody who is fully Heisman worthy. And Mendoza ran away with it. I thought, and Corey Curtis did bring this up to us, that he thought Mendoza would win because a lot of people would leave Pavia off their ballots entirely. 25% of voters did not put Pavia first, second, or third, which I think is just ludicrous.
Can we go ahead and get into the elephant in the room here? Because I believe this leads directly into it.
I mean, we can, yeah.
So I saw the video. I'm sure most of you have too, of him in NYC, him at the club afterwards, him buying the sign that said F Indiana.
The Instagram post.
Right. I came in here last week and said that I thought Diego Pavia deserved the Heisman. And I stood up here and I made my case for him. But after seeing that, I was thoroughly disappointed. And I'm not going to come in here and make a blanket statement about Pavia, but I did not have respect at all for the way that he carried himself, because that's not how you should act after a loss. That's not how you act, because there is, whether you want to admit it or not, there is a likability aspect to this. And everybody that Fernando Mendoza talks to, they love him. And if you don't like Fernando Mendoza, you're probably the problem. But there is a likability aspect to this. I saw Nicole Auerbach, who votes for NBC Sports. She was one of the people that didn't have Pavia on her ballot, which is kind of crazy. But at the same time, there's probably a likability aspect to this. And the way Pavia carried himself, he proved those people that left them off of their ballot right by the way he acted. I was very disappointed.
Yeah, it was. I think there was some pettiness with it of they didn't like Diego Pavia, so they left him off the ballot. And that is a way to help Fernando Mendoza. Now, Mendoza got enough first place votes that he would have won it no matter what. Like, it's the 25% of voters leaving him off. I don't know if that decided it, but Mendoza getting what? It was the second most ever, or tied for the second most ever ballots on, like, he was 92% of ballots had Mendoza on there, and only 75% had Diego Pavia on. I thought that was crazy. And especially when I will continue to say, I think one throw decided the Heisman. That throw on third down to beat Ohio State, I think decided who won the Heisman Trophy, which is stupid. It should be based on the whole body of work. And if Mendoza still wins because people evaluated the whole body of work, sure. But I think there are so many voters who had not watched Diego Pavia, and they watched that Big Ten championship game, and they saw the throw. They heard Gus Johnson and Joel Klatt declare Fernando Mendoza the Heisman winner, and they said, good enough for me. And it's not everybody. I know there are, I would say most Heisman voters are very good about being thorough before they put their ballot in. But I would bet there's at least a couple hundred who said, he made the throw. Gus Johnson says he's the Heisman winner. Sure enough, he can be the Heisman winner. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Let's go to our phone lines. Dr. Locke has been waiting very patiently. What you got for us today, Dr. Locke?
What's going on, Jake? What's up, Parker?
What's going on, Dr. Locke?
Hey, let's break it down. So to recap the first hour, inconsistency, Cam Ward, got that. Unfortunately, this week coming up, it's not going to be much better with Spagnuolo. I want to give the viewing audience an easy bet. Take the under and take the points with Titans. It'll cover. Let's delve into this hour. My opinion, in 30 years of watching college football, off the field means as much as on the field. The middle fingers in the tower to the fans, the screaming the F-bombs to the fans when he's coming off the field. You either represent class, and class is how you win, and more importantly, how you lose. F Indiana, the signs in the club, very Johnny Manziel. Keep it classy, right? Very Johnny Manziel.
Yeah.
Very money. I mean, and it's going to hurt his draft stock. That kid, I guarantee, plummeted. Hey, congratulations. You just kissed away millions. You're going to be drafted like Shadur. You're no more than the watch shaker now. So now you're going to be drafted down 6th, 7th, 8th, and listed as a locker room cancer. And he destroyed his future. It's unbelievable. Where's this kid's dad? So to grab him by the neck and say, put the drinks down, put the phone down, don't post that. And if we want to do with the Vegas odds, what do you think the Vegas line is? How many clubs that got kicked out of that night? 7, 8, 9? I'll set the line at 8, and I'd take the over.
If you can get the total among him and his brothers, that might be a good line.
Oh, no. You throw the brother in, it's going to 10, 12, easy.
Now, Dr. Locke, I agree with you. I think that voters were clearly turned off by the attitude of Diego Pavia, and he's done nothing but reinforce that this weekend.
No question. And I mean, you get Mendoza, who looks like a choir boy. His draft stock's intact. Julian Sayin is a very humble kid. He knows he's coming back throwing at NFL receivers. He knows he's going to be right back in that room next year. So he kept it humble, kept it classy. His draft stock stayed intact. And then you got this makeup wearing weirdo with the chains and the attitude. I mean, what was he thinking? And honestly, I called into you guys and said I'd like to see him get it. So it's not just my Big Ten bias. I think that his work on the field, 71%. I think one of you guys said a stat like 71% of the offense flowed through him.
Yeah,
that's amazing. And another one, I think it's either you, Parker, or maybe Jake, said that, what's more impressive, taking an 11-win team to 13 or taking a 2-win team to 10? That was a great point. I mean, you guys lobbied for this kid on the radio, and honestly, you had my vote. If I had a vote, I'd give it to him. But I was so disgusted with the aftermath. Hey, congratulations, Johnny Manziel. You earn everything you get now.
Thanks for the call, Dr. Locke. And I agree with most of what you said there, that
Same.
Diego Pavia deserved the Heisman Trophy.
Yep.
Like, I'm not backing down on that. I think that his play on the field, he should have won the Heisman Trophy for what he did this year. But the more we're seeing from this past weekend, I really do think voters were turned off by the attitude.
100%.
And
100%.
I believe Dr. Locke, did he say locker room cancer about Diego Pavia?
I think he did.
I'm
maybe.
seeing,
I don't want to put words in his mouth. I don't
Vandy
remember.
Chris on the YouTube chat is saying locker room cancer, and I do want to point out that locker room loves Diego Pavia.
Right.
It's nothing to do with in the locker room, right? Those guys love him. I think he is a great teammate. I think he is a great leader, but it is the outward image that he's putting out there
Bingo.
of going out with Theo Vaughn during the week, and the reaction with fans after the Alabama loss, and the double birds, and then
the post-game video after beating Tennessee.
Right.
We effing run the state.
Yeah, it's all of that. And I think that played more of a role than I thought it would in the voting. And we'll continue to talk about this. And this was after the ballots were closed, so it had nothing to do with it. This was just a bad weekend overall for Diego Pavia, because heading into the ceremony, he already was kind of digging his own grave and adding fuel to the fire. And then, of course, the reaction after has completely added that. Now, Diego Pavia has apologized. He put out a tweet and apologized for the Instagram post and for the night in the club, that he respects Fernando Mendoza and says he deserves it and respects the voting process. But the damage seems to have already been done.
It was only right that he apologized, but you can build. It takes years to build trust, but you can lose it in seconds.
Right. And I agree with that. 615-737-1025. Let's give away some Preds tickets. Be caller number 3, and you can win a pair of tickets to see the Predators take on the Carolina Hurricanes on Wednesday night at Bridgestone Arena. It's a 7:00 puck drop. Again, caller number 3 at 615-737-1025 to win 2 tickets to see the Preds and the Hurricanes on Wednesday. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you. Next man up here on 1025 The Game. 94.9 The Fan is your home for Vanderbilt women's basketball. Tonight, the Commodores take on South Florida at Memorial Gym. 6:30 p.m. tip. Pregame begins at 6:15. Make sure you tune in. I'll be on the call. Commodores back after the exam week break and looking to get to 10-0 for the first time since 2011. Talking about the Heisman Trophy ceremony here in hour number 2. Diego Pavia comes up short to Fernando Mendoza by a wider margin than I would have thought. 25% of voters leaving Pavia off the ballot entirely, which I think is petty. Again, we have made the case that Diego Pavia deserves to win the Heisman Trophy based off his on-field performance this year. But it does seem like the attitude, some of the behavior has turned off some voters even before this weekend. And Parker, you went through some of the stuff. Dr. Locke talked about it on our phone lines. And it started for me on Friday at the media availability, and people were already starting to pick at things Diego Pavia was doing. Like, some of it was stupid. They're like saying he had his earbuds in as he was walking down the street. It's like they were all in travel suits. It wasn't a big deal. That was stupid. But I saw some of the clips from the media availability where it's like they're asking him, who's a better college football player all time, Johnny Manziel or Lamar Jackson? And he has to go, neither. It's me. And it's like a little bit of humility, I think, would have gone a long way for Diego Pavia heading into the event. And there was some of it, right? And Clark Lee and Diego being up on the stage together, I think, was good. There was some good stuff that came from that, but just a little bit of lack of humility in that media availability on Friday. And that already started to get people talking, right? You had people around the college football world who were saying, man, this guy's attitude, do we want to see him give an acceptance speech, all this stuff? And it just kind of continued to snowball throughout the weekend. And of course, the Instagram post is tough, right?
Yeah.
Like it, F all the voters is, that's something that he needs to be advised against before he puts it out there, because there were a lot of voters who did put him on their ballot and a lot of voters who did vote him to win the trophy. Like, you can't have that. You can't.
Like, dude, I was one of the people advocating for you, and you're turning me off. Like, well, I don't have a vote, so it doesn't really matter. But like, a little bit of humility goes a long way. And it really, like, I agree. Like, people are going to pick at Diego Pavia just because it's Diego Pavia, but they were walking in and had all the media availability and stuff, and they're very important people that they were being introduced to as Heisman finalists, and Diego Pavia had his headphones on,
right,
and the rest of them didn't. And there was one clip I saw where they were walking to, I guess, do their media availability, their press conferences before the Heisman was announced, and they were all in their suits. And one person stopped to acknowledge the camera people, and that was Fernando Mendoza.
Right.
So, and that's, I'm talking Julian Sayin, Jeremiah Love, Diego Pavia all didn't. So it wasn't just Diego Pavia then, but Fernando Mendoza is such a good dude, and that absolutely played a role in this.
I think it did. We said it last week of the quote from one of those Barstool podcasts of Fernando Mendoza and Diego Pavia are the angel and the devil on the shoulder of college football, and that was kind of the image that was put out there in this vote of, you've got this Diego Pavia out there in front of you. We said it, you can look at the two press conference or the two post-game interviews after they beat the number one team in the country. Vandy, we effing turnt, and Fernando, the Hoosiers are flipping champs. It's like you can't get much of a starker contrast than those two guys. And clearly the college football world, the Heisman voters chose Fernando Mendoza. It's been tough, though, for Diego Pavia just adding fuel to the fire, right? I think a lot of this stuff is being overblown overall, of people didn't like him already and are trying to find ways to not like him more. But Diego is doing himself absolutely no favors. And Dr. Locke made a good point. Like, you're still trying to get drafted if you're Diego Pavia. And you're not a guy who's a can't miss prospect, right? You don't have the typical NFL size or stature or arm. Like, you're not a guy who can do whatever he wants and is still going to get picked early.
Like, you're already an underdog, and you're going to continue to be an underdog. Why? You're going to have it hard. Why make it harder?
Right.
Because if you don't think NFL scouts are going to go back to this moment and look at this, you would probably be a 5th round pick at best. Now you may go undrafted, maybe even 6th or 7th round.
And
so you're making it harder on yourself,
the
dude.
biggest thing that we have talked about with Diego Pavia, and I think Diego Pavia has improved greatly as a quarterback. He is a much better passer than he was a year ago.
Absolutely.
But the biggest thing that is brought up with Diego Pavia and Corey and TD and everybody we have on say, you want that guy in your locker room. You do. Because he is a guy who brings people together. And we mentioned in the last segment, everybody in that Vanderbilt locker room loves Diego Pavia. They do. He is a leader. But what's going to outweigh being a leader is being a distraction. And that is just not what you want from a guy you're taking in the 5th or 6th round in a quarterback. The last thing that a team wants their backup quarterback or their 3rd string quarterback to be is a distraction. And Diego Pavia, I think, is bordering on that right now with some of the antics. And I'm glad he apologized. And I do think that the college football world has decided to make Diego Pavia the punching bag of, like, you know, they did not want him to win heading into the weekend, and Diego Pavia has just given them more and more excuses to come after him. But not a good weekend for Diego Pavia. Not a good one.
Yeah, and it was completely unwarranted too. Now, there are plenty examples of guys who have rebuilt their reputations. I think Baker Mayfield is a great example because Baker Mayfield had all the talent in the world in college, was the 1st overall pick, but it's hard to forget that Kansas incident right before the game when Oklahoma took on Kansas and the gestures that he made before the game got started. He was a bit of a troublemaker in college, but he rebuilt his reputation.
Yeah.
So that's certainly possible for Diego Pavia, but it was not a good look this weekend.
I think he leaned too much into the Johnny Manziel stuff. And with Johnny Manziel, his numbers backed it up. And again, Diego Pavia, I think, had the best season of anybody in college football, but he didn't have the overwhelming numbers to the point where it would completely overshadow some of the other stuff. And
absolutely,
the voters, they saw the two personalities and they went with Fernando Mendoza. Diego Pavia, I don't know if it's going to send him to being undrafted, but I do think there are going to be some NFL teams that are taking a second look now who may have thought he would be a good target for them on day 3.
I mean, look at what happened to Shedeur Sanders.
Right.
Mel Kiper had him as his best quarterback available, and he slipped to the 5th round. I don't know the reasoning for that. I'm not going to act like I do know. But what I do know is there are huge distractions that come with drafting Shedeur Sanders.
Yes, and I think that's why it's been made pretty well documented that Kevin Stefanski was not a huge fan of taking Shedeur Sanders. It's because you don't want your 2nd or 3rd string quarterback to be a distraction. Shedeur Sanders, as much as he is probably a more talented quarterback than a lot of the guys who were taken in front of him in the draft, he is a distraction because of his family and because of the way he carries himself. And Diego Pavia, I think, would fall under the same category right now. Is he going to be able to overcome that? I think his meetings with teams is going to be very important, right? He has to be able to prove to teams that that is not who he is, and he is going to be able to come in and he's going to be able to help your locker room not hurt it.
Absolutely. And that's why I say this was unwarranted, because it did not have to be like this. It did not have to be like this. And I completely forgot what I was going to say, but yeah, I forgot.
A lot's being made out of this. I think Diego Pavia still has a chance to rebound, and he is going to get his chance. He's going to the Senior Bowl, so that's going to be a great opportunity for Diego Pavia. But obviously, this is a weekend that has hurt his reputation with the way things went over.
I remember. It's great that you can go in and change a locker room. I believe absolutely Pavia could do that. I believe he could do that on the NFL level, even if he's not the starter. But NFL teams care about their image, and if you're going to hurt their outside image, then what's the incentive to draft you?
Right. That's exactly the point. I mean, it's a big reason why, like, RG3 kind of never made it back into the league after he spent a little time as the backup with the Ravens. There are these quarterbacks. Johnny Manziel would be a good example too, of once they flame out the first time, they don't get a second chance because they're probably not going to be good enough to start for you and help your team on the field. and they're just going to lead to more headlines off the field. Diego Pavia has to get himself out of that category. 615-737-1025. Let's go to the phone lines. Edward has been waiting patiently. Edward, thanks for calling. Good morning.
Hey guys, am I the next man up?
Yes, you are.
All right. I couldn't disagree with you guys more. Or doctor. Not sure what he's a doctor of, but this is a street smarts issue. Concerned about being in the NFL with the criminals that they've been there. It doesn't matter about your actions. It matters about your skill level. And if an owner thinks that you can win, Johnny Manziel made millions. So I'm, and this being a surprise about Diego Pavia, I mean, you just had to watch him coming off the field at Alabama, and you knew what you had. But yeah, let's make sure we know what kind of people are in the NFL. And no, if you can win for me, you're going to get an opportunity. And if he flames out, you'll go to the CFL, just like Doug Cady. That's just my thoughts. I know you'll disagree with me. But that didn't surprise me. I was just waiting. I did appreciate him giving the Heisman winner a hug and say congratulations. But yeah, on a side note, MTSU women's basketball tomorrow night. Auburn's coming to town.
There you go.
So Southern Indiana University beat us by 17 yesterday, and we're probably going to have a bloodbath over at Murphy Center tomorrow night. So anyway, enjoy the show, guys.
Thanks for the call, Edward. My response to that would be yes. NFL teams care most about winning. And that's why you'll see guys with maybe some off the field stuff, like Caleb Williams. There were some question marks about his off the field personality and stuff, but he was good enough that it didn't matter. Diego Pavia is not at that elite level of NFL prospect, and that's where some of the off the field stuff, instead of making you fall a couple of picks, like maybe Johnny Manziel, who could have been a much higher pick without the off the field stuff, you're going to fall a couple of rounds.
When you have elite level talent, there's a little bit of wiggle room,
right?
With character,
you
flaws.
get a little bit more leeway when it comes to the off the field stuff when you are an elite prospect. And I think Diego Pavia is a fine prospect. I think a team would like to bring him in, but this stuff, it can be something that would turn teams off. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. If you want to text or call, our phone line is driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. More on college football, more on the Heisman and the college football playoffs starting this weekend. We'll get to all of it. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 1025 The Game. Next man up, 1025 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you on this Reaction Monday. We want to hear from you. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Continuing to talk about the Heisman Trophy being awarded to Fernando Mendoza. Diego Pavia finishes second, and the behavior after the ceremony, Instagram post out in the club. And I want to look at the YouTube chat here, and Vandy Chris and Big Ed in the YouTube chat are having the conversation about him going out and partying after a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and you shouldn't fault a college student for doing college student things. And I agree with that sentiment. I have no problem with him going out to the club. He should celebrate being a Heisman finalist, finishing second for the Heisman. Not a lot of people can say they finished in the top 2 for the Heisman Trophy. About 180 of them. But it was putting it out there on social media of F all the voters, and then buying a sign that says F Indiana, like it was Indiana's fault that he lost the Heisman Trophy. Like, that's the stuff that you got to point out. And as somebody who has to know that he's in the public eye and that basically the next 4 months of his life is a job interview, that's the kind of things that you just don't want to see happen. I agree. I think people are kind of trying to kick Diego Pavia when he's down, and every little thing that pops up is going to be overblown. But you have to know that if you're Diego Pavia, that people are looking for you to react the way that you did, and you kind of just played right into their hands. And again, adding fuel to this fire of, oh, Diego Pavia is a sore loser and all that. And that tag can stick with you, right? Like it may not be true, but that post is probably going to be asked about in his NFL interviews with these teams of like, hey, we can't have you doing this if you play for our team. And it's the type of thing that people kind of expect from Diego Pavia, and he played into their hands.
Right. He gave them a reason to validate why they might have left him. I think it's absurd that anybody left Diego Pavia off of their ballot. But if it was based on, character traits or whatever, then he validated their concerns this weekend.
And I think it's fair to mention both that the voters did kind of screw Diego Pavia. 25% of voters leaving him off their ballot is ridiculous. And it doesn't have to do with his play on the field.
I was shocked because, all the voters were posting on Sunday, here's how my Heisman ballot looked. And I would just scroll and scroll and scroll. And almost everybody outside of the state of Tennessee did not have Diego Pavia on their ballot. Yeah. That I saw at least, which was crazy.
If Diego Pavia did not have the Instagram post or the scene in the club after, and instead was humble, put out a tweet or something like thanking the Heisman voters for consideration and congratulating Fernando Mendoza, we would be talking now about Diego Pavia got completely just thrown under the bus by the voters because he should have been on almost all of the ballots. Whether you wanted to put Mendoza or Pavia first, fine. I can live with you voting for Fernando Mendoza first. But not having Pavia on the ballot is ridiculous. And that's what we should be talking about. But because of the way Diego reacted, now we're having this different conversation. And I think he could have played into the, I don't want to call it like a victim mentality, but like the Vandy continues to get the short straw, whether it's the playoff, whether it's the Heisman. Instead, now you're looking like a sore loser because of the two things that have been put that out there on social media.
Everybody was trashing Notre Dame for opting out of a bowl game after they got left out of the college football playoff. And now Diego Pavia, after losing the Heisman, celebrated the way that he did. It gives very similar vibes.
Yeah, I was texting some friends during the Heisman ceremony, and all of them were rooting against Diego, which surprised me. They're all like, oh, I really don't want to see Diego win. I'm like, why? He deserves it. And by the end of the week, I was texting in that same group chat. I was like, yeah, the Heisman voters are having their vote kind of supported right now.
I couldn't defend what I saw on social media this weekend. And when they announced Fernando Mendoza, I wasn't upset.
No.
I said I would have voted for Pavia, but Mendoza deserved it as well. So I'm not going to be upset. But seeing the videos yesterday, that deeply concerned me.
Yep. And he's going to have to work his way back from some of that, the aftermath of this, as he works his way towards the draft. 615-737-1025. Text line Benjamin says way too many voters. And I agree with that. With almost 1,000 voters, can you really confirm that all of these people are actually putting complete and total thought into this? And there were some ballots that have been posted that are just insane. And I'm not going to advocate for people getting their ballots taken away, but if you're willing to post a ballot that doesn't have any of the top 3 finishers on it or something like that, then maybe you should have your ballot taken away. Dustin from Hopkinsville says, this is what I'll say about Diego. His behavior after the fact, his words, they chose right. It was always a case for both men. The Heisman isn't just physical talent, stats. It's leadership too. He's mild version of Manziel. And yeah, I mean, I think
Very fair.
I said it earlier, Diego Pavia, he tried to act like Johnny Manziel, but he did not have the insane stats that Manziel did when he won the Heisman. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. We'd love to hear from you. We'll wrap up our conversation on college football, maybe take an early look at the college football playoff as games are just 4 days away, and then back into the Titans in the 11 o'clock hour. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 1025 The Game. Next man up, 102.5. The Game wrapping up hour number 2 on this Monday. This is well done. Little Polar Express.
Great movie.
It is. It is. That's one I haven't gotten to. I did watch. I watched Home Alone, The Santa Claus, and Christmas Vacation. Me and my fiance did kind of like a Christmas movie night on Friday night. So
Nice.
I got those 3 checked off. Still need to get Elf, and I think Polar Express has been added to the list.
I will probably be watching Home Alone very soon.
It was good. I hadn't seen it in a while. I don't think I watched it last year. I was happy that we put that one on the list.
Yearly tradition for me.
Quick tangent. Have you watched the new Knives Out movie, Wake Up Dead Man, on Netflix?
I haven't.
It is really good. I'm a big fan of those movies. I still think the original, the Knives Out, is the best, but this one was solid with Daniel Craig playing Benoit Blanc. Make sure to check it out. I watched that.
I'd be willing to watch it.
I think I watched it Saturday morning because, no game day. So I was like, yeah, might as well.
I also have a quick tangent. Going back to Polar Express, if you think about it, a bunch of, this magical train comes out of nowhere. A bunch of these guys convince a bunch of little kids to get on a train in the middle of the night and go somewhere they have no idea. If you think about it, it has lawsuit written all over it.
There are a lot of children's movies that if you really unpack it,
I'm just kidding. Don't cancel Polar Express. It's just a joke.
I mean, if you look back and you give like the very literal descriptions of movies, a lot of children's movies probably wouldn't be made today. But I see where you're coming from. We're going to spend more time on the college football playoff tomorrow because we ran out of time a little bit in this hour. So with Nick Frazier, we'll talk a little bit more about the opening round college football playoff games this weekend. It's a little underwhelming looking at the schedule, though, Parker. The way I look at it, Tulane and Ole Miss maybe is a game because John Summerall is coaching, and of course Lane Kiffin is no longer at Ole Miss. But I still think Ole Miss ends up winning that game by 3 touchdowns. Then JMU and Oregon is more, I mean, Dukes fans might not want to hear this, but that's a happy to be here game, right? Like the Dukes are getting a trip across the country to Eugene. They get to go play in Autzen Stadium, and they're going to lose by 30. So those are your late games on Saturday. So who came up with this schedule? I'm okay with Alabama, Oklahoma on Friday. Like Alabama, Oklahoma Friday, I think that's a good Friday night game. Last year it was Notre Dame, Indiana. I'm okay with that as your Friday night game. Why is Miami A&M the noon game?
That is exactly what I have the issue with. That should be the primetime game. You want your best games in primetime. And with the way this whole scheduling dynamic is set up, you're 100% right. Because these ratings, if they're wanting to get good ratings, they're probably not. Because you got JMU and Madison, or James Madison and Oregon playing at 6:30. You know what that's going up against?
Oh, the NFL.
Packers.
Yeah, right. I forgot the
Bears,
NFL
Packers.
starts doing Saturdays.
They're going to get blown
out
because the majority of the country is going to want to watch NFL.
Okay. Yep.
But that's the thing. I'm going to save my Group of 5 playoff idea for later. But I personally would love to have Miami and Texas A&M in primetime because if you're looking at the schedule, very underwhelming.
All right, I get it. I get it now. I did not realize that Saturday games for the NFL started this weekend. But yeah, the last 2 games are going up against NFL games. Am I the only one? And you might be surprised by this, Parker, because I am an advocate for I think the NFL is a better product than college football. But
yeah, we're gonna have some disagreement there. But you know who I am.
Who is watching? Does college football not think it can go up against a regular season NFL game? Like I know the NFL is king, but if you had a good playoff game, I really think you could get people to watch that over Eagles Commanders.
Jake, you're opening a dangerous can of worms here, my friend.
I also understand that for college football, they're like, all right, well, Tulane, Ole Miss, and JMU, Oregon aren't going to get great viewership no matter what, because those games are probably going to be blowouts in the second half. So let's put them up there and try and get everyone in the country locked in on A&M Miami. But man, 11 a.m., that's tough.
Yeah, and if in my ideal world, if I was college football commissioner, here's how I'd look at it. College football does so much for the NFL in terms of developing the players and getting them there and even promoting the NFL. The NFL does not do as much for college football.
That's fair.
I would have Miami and Texas A&M because I would have that in 6:30 because I'm not afraid to go up against Bears, Packers, Eagles, Commanders, whatever that might be. Now, the NFL still may get more ratings because you're right, NFL is king in this country, even if that's not what I believe. It is because the ratings tell us so.
Right.
But at least you'd put a dent in their ratings, and they would not like that. So therefore, it incentivizes them to work with you a little bit more if you're hurting their ratings.
Yeah, Bears-Packers is tough. That one 720, I can see why they didn't want to go up against it, but I hate it personally because I will be over at Memorial on Saturday. Vandy playing Texas Southern in our final game
What
before
time
the
is that?
holidays. That's a noon game on Saturday.
Oh,
So
okay.
I'll be over there and miss all of Miami, Texas A&M. Happy to do that, but like I would love to watch Miami, Texas A&M.
It's a win-loss
If
here.
it was a 6:30, I probably would get to watch more of it at the very
Will
least.
you get to watch Alabama and Oklahoma?
I will. I will be packing. So I will be locked in on that. 2349 says, are you telling me that any Titans game this year is a better product than the best of college football?
Uh-oh, see?
No,
See?
that's not a very good comparison. I want you to take the average NFL game versus the average college football game. The average NFL game is going to be better. That's the point I'm making, is that your middle point NFL game of, like Eagles versus, trying to think of a good matchup, Eagles Dolphins or something like that, where it's not a great game, but it's an okay game. The Dolphins could put up a fight, versus your middle game in college. And with so many games in college, your middle game in college is probably like Missouri, Kansas or something like that.
Jake, I'm a college football guy through and through. I'd watch USF and Navy over Eagles Commanders. That's because that's just how I am. I'm not saying everybody's that way, but yesterday I was actually, while I was watching the Titans, I was watching the Nebraska Texas A&M regional
The
final.
volleyball game. I
in
heard that was
volleyball.
crazy. I didn't watch it.
And if I'm being honest, I had more fun watching that game than the Titans game. And I'm a football guy through and through. But there's something about college athletics that are just the pageantry of it. I love it.
We can't use the Titans as a comparison though right now.
Well, to be fair,
they don't look like they're playing football.
Rams Lions was on at the same time.
That's
and
true.
I had that up too.
Yeah.
So
Brian on the text line says, here's a crazy idea for college football. Don't have cupcake games in your playoffs. And that could open a whole other can of worms of whether these group of five
I'd be
teams
happy to
should
get
be
into.
in.
We just don't have enough time.
Maybe
today.
tomorrow with Dr. Crane, we can get into that a little bit more. We'll talk more college football tomorrow, but back into the Titans. Titans fall 37-24 yesterday to the 49ers, and the defense was the culprit yesterday in that loss, as they could not get off the field. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you on this Monday. Next Man Up, 102.5 The Game. Final hour, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, alongside you on your Monday morning, broadcasting live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Been a fun show so far. Talked about some college football in the last segment, and we got lots of people talking about the college football games coming up on Saturday. We will dive more into that tomorrow with Nick Frazier. We'll talk a lot of college football playoff as those games approach quickly on Friday and Saturday. I also have to clear things up. Parker alerted me to the YouTube chat where Predemption says, "You've never watched the Polar Express, Jake?" No, I have. I said I haven't watched it this year. So I need to watch that this year. But of course, I've seen the Polar Express, one of the best Christmas movies.
Yeah. I'm considering Twilight a Christmas movie, not for any particular reason. I just haven't seen it, and my wife we're on a movie marathon. So it's part of my Christmas
I gotta
celebration.
say, I
this
was
year.
like, man, Twilight, I wouldn't call that a Christmas movie.
No, it's not whatsoever. I'm just considering it because we're doing a movie marathon around Christmas time. I had never seen Twilight before.
You've never seen it?
Never.
Oh.
Well, I'm 3 movies in, and so far I'm Team Jacob.
Oh, okay. So you've seen the first 3 now.
I haven't seen the last 2. But so far, I'm Team Jacob. Now that may change.
The acting in those movies.
Oh, it's horrendous.
I mean, I had an older sister who was obsessed with Twilight when I was younger, so we would watch them. I mean, it is painful to watch sometimes. But yeah, I need to get to some more Christmas movies. I can't believe it's 10 days away now. So got some work.
We're getting close.
Titans also have some work to do. They are now 2-12, 37-24 loss to the 49ers yesterday on the road, and we talked a lot about Cam Ward in the first hour. Cam was not great again yesterday. It was an up and down day, some good, some bad. But if you're going to blame somebody for losing that game yesterday, it's got to be the defense, especially early on. 7 straight third down conversions to start the game. I believe I saw a stat, I think it was from Nick Suss, that the 49ers were 7 for 7 to start the day on third downs. The Titans did not have a game this season with 7 or more third down conversions in a game, and they gave up 7 in a row to start the day. So the Titans, they just could not get off the field. A lot of them were easier third downs, but not all of them. They just could not find a way to get the 49ers off the field. And you give up 37 points. You gave up 31 on the first 5 drives of the game. It wasn't good. And injuries had something to do with that. We talked about the safeties having to leave the game. Mike Brown, then it was Kevin Winston, then it was Xavier Woods, and boom, second half, you're running out Amani Hooker and Kendall Brooks because that's pretty much all you have out there. And that had a lot to do with it, I'm sure, especially with the cornerbacks that you currently have to play with Darrell Baker and Marcus Harris, who is a young rookie. Speaking of Marcus Harris, that defensive pass interference call on, I think it was like 2nd and 10. I forget which drive it was. Maybe one of the worst calls I've ever seen. Do you know what play I'm talking about, Parker? It was like the little dig route from, I think it was Juwan Jennings. And Marcus Harris didn't even touch him. No one touched him. And the flag came in 5 seconds after the play ended from 18 yards behind, just lobbed all the way down the field and gave the 49ers a first down.
Was that the point in time where, was it Drew Brees who was doing color yesterday? Or was that a different game?
It was Drew Brees.
It was Drew Brees.
It was Adam Amin and Drew Brees.
I think he said that the ref could not get the flag out of his belt, and that's why it was so late. I think that is the play. I could be wrong.
Maybe that's what it was, but it was horrible. Horrible.
It was horrible.
And your secondary, you had one guy in the secondary for most of that game who I would call an NFL starting level player, Amani Hooker. Everybody else, if you rattled off the top, I guess what, you need 3 cornerbacks, the top 96 cornerbacks and the top 64 safeties, Amani Hooker would be the only one who makes either of those lists that played in the second half of that game yesterday. But it's not like that's not partially due to the Titans' own decisions of trading away Jarvis Brownlee Jr., Roger McCreary, and of course, L'Jarius Sneed on injured reserve. But there was some good that I noticed from the defense. And I heard Robbie and Joe talking about Tavondre Sweat this morning, about how he's been a bigger disappointment than JC Latham. And I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think Sweat has not had a great year, but I noticed him multiple times yesterday. That's not enough to say that he's living up to his draft billing of 35th overall, but I noticed him. He made some plays in the run game. He put some pressure on Brock Purdy a couple of times. He had a nice play where he hemmed Brock Purdy into the pocket and made him throw the ball away. I thought T'Vondre Sweat actually had a pretty solid game yesterday. Now, he does have to actually get to the quarterback at some point. He does have to stuff the run game consistently. But I do have to say, T'Vondre Sweat impressed me yesterday. I liked what I saw from T'Vondre Sweat. And again, another decent game from JC Latham. Those two guys trending in the right direction is an important development for this Titans team.
Yeah, and the offensive line has looked really, really good over the last. And I really think the confidence boost was limiting Myles Garrett to 1 sack against Cleveland, because that defensive line is very, very good. So I think that was the confidence boost that they needed. And T'Vondre Sweat and Jeffrey Simmons are very instrumental in the middle on the defense.
Yeah, and I know TD has talked about how long is T'Vondre Sweat's leash? Is there a motivation issue? Is there a, can he stay in shape issue? That's all going to be worked out in the offseason. But I think you feel pretty good as of right now with Jeffrey Simmons and T'Vondre Sweat anchoring the middle of your defense right now. Dustin Hopkinsville says, Big Sweat isn't showing up on the stat sheet, but he's a big part of Simmons getting his stats, in my opinion. I agree with that. I think Sweat had a solid game yesterday. I also think the Titans may have found some depth on the edge. Now, you need top-end talent on the edge, and that's going to come in the draft. But Jalen Harrell with another sack. He made a couple of plays yesterday. Jihad Ward has had a pretty good day. So I think you can head into next year with maybe those guys as your edge 4 and 5. Femi can maybe be your 2 or 3. So you still need a couple other pieces. But I did like some of the young guys, Harrell and Sweat yesterday. I thought they made some plays for the Titans defense, despite it being an overall lackluster day on that side of the ball.
Is it Harrell has 5 sacks in his last however many, was it 3 games or so? I saw a stat yesterday. Jalen Harrell's been very impressive.
Yeah.
So hopefully he continues to trend in the right direction. I'm going to find that stat.
Yeah, Jalen Harrell, I don't think he's ever going to be a starting level edge rusher, but you need multiple guys that you can rotate in and out. And that's where I'm going to get next, because Parker, we talked about building up this roster to have a higher floor. The Titans have a ton of cap space, but there isn't going to be stars on the open market in free agency. Maybe there's some available in a trade, but the Titans are trying to build draft capital, not trade it away. So in free agency, with nearly $150 million in cap space after they likely get rid of Calvin Ridley and L'Jarius Sneed and others, what do? You've got to build the bottom of this roster. You have to bring in depth that can raise the floor of this team so you are not a 2 or 3 win team, but even if you don't add high-end talent, you're no worse than a 5 to 6 win team. That's right. What free agency's got to be for.
And I was asked over the weekend, and this pertains to the draft, if you were the Titans, what would you do if you had a top 3 pick? And I said, well, I would try to trade it, get 2 picks in the first round, and it really doesn't matter the position. You just need talent. And there's so many holes that you need to fill. Right. You just need quality talent on the team.
You need
same thing in free agency.
You need to find your stars at the top of the draft. And if you have an early pick this year, whether you trade it, whether you stick and pick, that's where you have to find your stars who are going to be the pillars of this franchise. But you're really building this thing from the ground up. You need bricks too. And that's where you're going to find your bricks, is in free agency, who can come in and your team is not going to fall apart having these guys on the field. And when I realized that the Titans are in desperate need of some bricks in free agency is on Purdy's long scramble for 25 yards where he did the little ball fake in Cody Barton's face. I was looking at the defensive line and I saw some numbers that I had no idea who they were. Here were the 4 defensive linemen on the field for that play. And again, you have some talent like that wasn't on the field for this play. T'Vondre Sweat, there you go. That's a fine player to have. The other 3, James Lynch, CJ Ravenel, and Truman Jones. Parker, did you know that Truman Jones was on the Titans roster?
I knew the other three. I cannot tell you who that is.
I saw 56 pop up on the field, and I said, who the hell is 56? So I had to look it up, and I saw it was Truman Jones. Nothing against Truman Jones, but if you're an NFL team, you should never have a situation where you have James Lynch, CJ Ravenel, and Truman Jones on the field at the same time. That is the point that I'm trying to make of, man, you need to build up the bottom of this roster because those guys, they're, again, I don't know. I don't know enough about all of their games of what the potential they might have, but they're probably all likely current practice squatters or future practice squatters. James Lynch has established himself a little bit more than that, but this team desperately needs to raise the floor of this team because when you have those three guys on the defensive line and Kendall Brooks in your secondary, you got to be able to find some depth in free agency. And you got $150 million. Yeah, maybe there's a splash signing or two in there, but for the most part, you've got to bring in some guys who can be upgrades over numbers 35 through 53 on this roster because right now it's just not good enough. 615-737-1025 is the phone number if you want to text or call. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We are broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you on this Monday morning, continuing to talk Titans on the other side. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 1025, the game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you on this Monday. Titans falling 37-24 in Santa Clara yesterday. Quite honestly, just out-talented yesterday. That was a game where it was very clear who the better team was, and a one-on-one matchup decided a lot of those big plays, right? Like the Ricky Pearsall and Juwan Jennings were just better than Darrell Baker and Marcus Harris most of the day. And the Titans couldn't get a whole lot of pressure on Brock Purdy. They got some. They got the strip sack. But overall, it was pretty clear the 49ers were the more talented team. And I mentioned a play in the last segment that really just stood out to me, how thin this roster is in terms of guys who are just rosterable NFL talent. 3 out of the 4 defensive linemen on the play when Purdy ran for 25 yards. James Lynch, CJ Ravenel, Truman Jones. Now, James Lynch is a guy who is a depth defensive lineman who I think most Titans fans actually felt pretty good about heading into the season. That one wasn't really what screamed to me that this team doesn't have much depth on this roster. But CJ Ravenel was a waiver claim at the beginning of the season. And again, I did not know Truman Jones played for the Titans until that very play. So how do you fix that? I think you do have some pieces who you hope can add to that depth. You know, when Femi Oladejo is back, you think he's going to be a rotational edge piece for you at the very minimum. You hope he's more than that, but at the minimum, he's a guy who's going to play 40 snaps a game for you, maybe 50. I think Jalen Harrell and Jihad Ward can be depth guys for you. They can be your 4th and 5th edge rushers. And you'd like to take one early in the draft. Derek Morgan, last edge rusher picked in the 1st round by the Tennessee Titans. Me and TD like to hammer that point home. But you got to go out there and you got to find some NFL caliber players at a lot of these positions. Heading into the offseason, I think there are a few positions you feel okay about. I know safety was kind of a disaster yesterday, but I like that group heading into next season. Maybe you spend a 6th round pick or something on another guy to come in and be part of that group. But if your top 3 are Hooker, Woods, and Winston, I don't have much of an issue with that group heading into training camp next year, besides maybe a depth piece here or there. But I think you need to go get veteran pieces on the edge and in the cornerback room on the defensive side that can be cornerbacks 3 and 4, edge rusher 2 or 3. Your great players that are going to be cornerstones are going to come through the draft, but I think that is going to be a huge part of the plan in free agency for the Titans. So I'm looking through this free agency list, and I got to say, it is a little bit underwhelming. I've said this before, but there's just not a whole lot of really talented guys out there this year. And that is free agency in a nutshell. You don't let the talented guys go. But the Titans shouldn't be shopping in the Louis Vuitton section of free agency. You look at the top.
Because they can't afford it.
Well, they can't afford it, but I don't think it fits their timeline. I would much rather take a wide receiver early than pay the market value for George Pickens right now is $30 million. George Pickens had a really good year, and he's only 24. So
although the last couple of games have been rough.
Would it be the worst signing in the world? No, but I think that's a signing you should let another team make, not the Titans. You're not going and getting Trey Hendrickson. I'm looking right now. I guess we know who this year's Dan Moore is going to be. Rasheed Walker, the left tackle for the Packers. Looks like he's going to get $23 million. Not to say he's a bad player, because I think Dan Moore has been fine since he's been here. But the guy that no one really knows who he is going to get $90 million in a deal. I think the Titans need to be shopping more down in like a 3-year, $30 million deal for some of these names. And here's some that stand out to me. Jalen Watson from the Chiefs, I think could be a good signing. Cordell Flott from the Giants, only 24 years old, actually just turned 24. That's a guy that if he hits the market, you maybe go out and get. Alontae Taylor from the Saints, maybe that's a guy that you go out and get. And these aren't going to be your number one cornerbacks, right? Like this is not who you're signing to come in and be your lockdown corner. You're going to find that in the draft either this year or next. But I think you need to just raise the floor of this team. Edge rushers. Leonard Floyd from Atlanta. He's 33. Maybe that's not quite where you're looking. But some of these guys coming off their rookie deals, looking for that first deal where you can get 3 years, $30 million or 2 years, $25 million. And they can come in and immediately just give you a veteran presence where you don't have to play waiver claims and late round picks and undrafted free agents. Caleb on the text line, and this is actually a pretty good start. Alontae Taylor, Isaiah Likely, Breece Hall should all be Titans for starters. I think that is a great start for the Titans free agency. Are any of those?
I'd take Breece Hall in a heartbeat.
I think Breece Hall would be a great signing for this team. He's still young. He is, 24, 25? Where is he on this list?
That sounds right.
He is
He's
24 and a half.
Yeah.
Market value on Spot Track, $10.5 million. So maybe you overpay a little bit there. You get him for 3 years, $35 million, something like that. I think Breece Hall would be a great addition. Play him alongside Tajay Spears. I don't know what we're going to get at Kalel Mullings, although we did see him get a carry yesterday. But I think that's a great signing. Isaiah Likely depends on if you don't want to keep Chig. If you let Chig walk, then sure, Isaiah Likely, I think, would be a good replacement for him. Alontae Taylor, some of these other cornerbacks would be good. Benjamin makes a point that I wanted to get to. We need an Autry-type signing on defense. Easier said than done, but that is exactly what I'm thinking for this Titans defensive line. You've got the pieces. You got Simmons. You got Sweat. You're hoping Femi's good. Maybe you draft an edge rusher. But you need that veteran presence to tie it all together. And Sebastian Joseph Day is a fine player, but he is a replacement level player. Go out and find an upgrade there. Siri wants to tell me about Sebastian Joseph Day. I hate when my watch does that. There's some edge rushers out there or some defensive linemen who you could bring in and be that missing piece on that front to get this pass rush back to being at least somewhat competent. They've been better this year than they were last year or the year before. But if you draft a guy early, whether that's Arvell Reese or Ruben Bain, and him, Femi, and this guy on the edge are your top 3 edge rushers with Simmons and Sweat in the middle, that's a group I can get behind. Harrell and Ward can be your edge 4 and 5. And maybe you do have to add another big guy in the middle in free agency.
Because if you go get a very good edge rusher and you pair that with Jeffrey Simmons and Tavondre Sweat in the interior, that'll open them up.
Yeah.
And I thought some of Jeffrey Simmons' best plays, best games, best years were next to a guy like a Danico Autry,
Right,
or even a Bud Dupree, like somebody that could just get after the passer. They don't necessarily have to be, getting 22 and a half sacks every year like Myles Garrett, but you just need somebody that can rush the passer to help open up lanes for Jeffrey Simmons. And with his weight loss, he's been able to get after the passer without an elite defensive end next to him.
Yeah, and we have a long way to go before free agency. It's still about 3 months away, but yesterday was the day because we had just had the conversation about raising the floor of this team. And yesterday just completely solidified that for me. If that has to be the goal in free agency. The draft raises your ceiling. Free agency has to raise your floor because you cannot have a defense next year on any given play that has Truman Jones, CJ Ravenel, Daryl Baker, and Kendall Brooks all on the field at the same time. That's half your defense. All of those guys are borderline practice squad players. Borderline. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. If you want to text or call, we'll take your thoughts. And look ahead a little bit to what is a very different looking Titans-Chiefs game than we thought we were going to get even 24 hours ago. Chiefs are eliminated from the playoffs for the first time since December of 2014. They come to Nashville led by Gardner Minshew. We'll get into it next. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 1025 The Game, Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, along with Alvin, Simon, and Theodore. Getting in the Christmas spirit these last couple Mondays leading towards Christmas next week. Hope everybody's having a great start to their holiday season. Titans falling yesterday 37-24 in Santa Clara to the San Francisco 49ers. Titans now 2-12. They are still in the third position in the NFL draft. Giants and Raiders both losing yesterday. Those two teams play coming up on the 28th of December. So one of them has to get one more win, or ideally for the Titans, they tie and the Titans could lose out and get the number one pick. But that seems like more of a pipe dream. But the Titans now look ahead to a game that looks a whole lot more winnable than it did at the beginning of the season or even at the beginning of yesterday. The Kansas City Chiefs come in. The game that was billed as the lone premium game on the Titans' home schedule. Like, if you wanted to go to this game, it was going to cost you extra because the Chiefs were coming to town. And now it is the 6-8 Kansas City Chiefs who are eliminated from playoff contention. And again, crazy to say, this is the first game the Chiefs are playing where they did not have a chance to win the Super Bowl still since 2014. And it was the last game of 2014 that they were eliminated. They were 8-7 heading into their last game in 2014. They made the playoffs in 2013. 2012 was their 2-win year that allowed them to pick first overall and take Eric Fisher. So the Chiefs have played one game out of playoff contention since the end of the 2012 season. That is a crazy statement, but it is true. They will make that 2 games since the end of the 2012 season on Sunday when they come to Nashville.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about, but it's also important to appreciate the greatness that we've been seeing despite how you may feel towards the Chiefs or despite how you may feel towards Patrick Mahomes, Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce, all of that. But the Chiefs look tired out there, and I think it's because, and this is not talked about enough, but if you factor in all the extra playoff games, all the Super Bowls that they've played in since Mahomes has taken over as starter, it's something around 81 extra football games that they've played compared to the rest of the teams that were not in the playoffs. So that's just insane to think about, but also it takes a toll on your body.
Yeah, the Chiefs, since Andy Reid took over, Andy Reid fired from Philadelphia at the end of the 2012 season after a 4-12 year. He takes over a 2-win Kansas City Chiefs team and takes them to 11-5 in year one. And then that was actually the year they went to the playoffs and lost to the Colts. That huge comeback from Andrew Luck. So the Chiefs have not had a losing season under Andy Reid. 9-7 in 2014. Every other year they have made the playoffs. They've won 3 Super Bowls. They will not make the playoffs this year. And if they do not win out, they will have a losing season under Andy Reid for the first time. So it does show you how fast you can turn things around when you find the right coach. Again, this 2-win Chiefs team went 11-5 the next year, although I don't think there are any Andy Reids out there on the market most years, almost every year. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Let's go to our phone lines. Driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Dustin from Hopkinsville has called in. Dustin, good morning. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to call in, man, and I was still on that train with them Chiefs. I was texting Big Joe every morning like, "You're crazy, man. Them Chiefs gonna be there at the end of the year, and 9 times out of 10 you're gonna be right." But let me just put it to you this way: how dang lucky are they if you're gonna have a dang ACL tear with the best quarterback in the league? The game that can put you out, that you're losing, that's when he goes down and sets you up for a little bit better pick in the draft. You know, they're needing some guys, and y'all are talking about getting rid of Chig. Well, with Kelce, he's got his mind on that, got that little twinkle in his eye with old Tay-Tay and getting married, and he's on the inside looking out. And I tell you what, Chig might be somebody that the Chiefs would love, and I sure hate to see that dude go to somebody like them in the AFC.
Yeah, that is what you worry about, right? With Chigakonkwo is he's been good here. He's been fine for what you got him in the 5th round. Like, he's been a fine player for you. You're worried that if you don't re-sign him, he's going to go somewhere else and become a player. So
yeah,
we will see. But
I'll say I'll say this about Chig. His first year, I was like, my goodness, we got our tight end. And then he had his second year and he fell off. But all that is a wash. All those players under Brian Callahan, they all regress. Look at Spears now. He's having a great little season when they give him the ball. And Chig is reemerged, and he has been Cam's best weapon. If you do not bring him back, you ought to be fired.
I maybe don't agree with that they should get fired if they don't bring back Chigakonkwo, but thank you for the call, Dustin. But I think, yes, he should be an option. Now, if Mike Borgonzi thinks that he can go find an upgrade in free agency, that's fine. But I also am perfectly behind a Chig Gunner union at tight end for another year, where you see whether Gunner can develop into a, top 10, top 12 tight end, or if they're just going to both kind of be middle of the league, and then you have to use a draft pick on another tight end at some point. 615-737-1025 is the phone number if you want to call or text. Obviously, Mahomes being out raises the question of, man, this game just got a whole lot more winnable for the Titans. I said it last week that this is a Chiefs team that almost everybody on that roster does not know what it feels like to play with nothing to play for. I mean, I'm sure there are some free agents they've brought in who have played on bad teams before, and there are some guys who have stuck around. But for the most part, the core of that team does not know what this is like, to go into a game on Sunday and know that your season is over. And now that you got Gardner Minshew starting at quarterback, this game just got a whole lot more winnable for the Titans on Sunday.
Yeah, I'd say it's more winnable than the Saints or Jags down the stretch. The Saints are playing good football.
Who would have thought you would get to this point in the season and say the most winnable game left between the Chiefs, the Saints, and the Jaguars, Kansas City?
It's a long NFL season, and a lot can change.
Crazy.
Yeah, no, this is probably the most winnable game they have left on their schedule, which is, again, like you said, just absolutely absurd. And the Saints have won their last two games.
The Saints are actually looking pretty good.
Tyler Shuck, he's 26. So, the Saints brought in a guy with a lot more experience. And I don't know if you're the Saints, can you go forward thinking he's the franchise quarterback, knowing that when you sign him to his extension, like if you did, he would be in his 30s already? I mean, I think you can, right? If he's good enough, but it's such an interesting situation with him being the ultra mega senior that he was when he came out of Louisville. I just remember watching, Oregon when they had Justin Herbert and their backup was Tyler Shuck.
Right.
Which is, just crazy to think about. But they've been playing really good football. They knocked the Panthers. Well, the Panthers, I guess, are still alive.
Panthers and Bucks are both 7-7.
Nobody wants to win the NFC South.
No, they do not.
Kind of like the ACC. Nobody wants to win.
Nobody wants to win.
Somebody has to, though.
And at least in this scenario, somebody will get a playoff game. If you want a bright spot, if you're a Titans fan who is locked in on Tankathon and locked in on the draft order and where the Titans could go, here's your scenario. Titans do have to lose out. If they're going to get the first overall pick, they have to lose out. And not going to be guaranteed because, again, the Chiefs are starting Gardner Minshew. The Saints, although they've looked better lately, that's a game the Titans can still win. And the Jaguars, who knows what they're going to be playing for in Week 18. That's always the question with draft order is, do the Jags have the division locked up, or are they still battling with Houston at the top of the AFC South? But if the Titans were to lose out, here's your scenario for the tankers. Raiders lose to the Giants. Somebody's got to lose that game in Week 17. And guess who the Gardner Minshew-led Kansas City Chiefs play in Week 18? They are at the Las Vegas Raiders. That looks like, and I would not pick the Raiders to win any game right now. I don't know if I picked the Titans to win any of their 3 games, but that is a much more winnable game for the Raiders too. So it does go both ways if you're looking at draft order for the Titans. Going to be very interesting on Sunday. Not a game that anyone expected would look like this. The Titans are 2-12. The Chiefs are 6-8. And Patrick Mahomes has torn his ACL. Will not play on Sunday. Gardner Minshew starting. The question becomes with Mahomes, is he ready for Week 1 next year? I would lean towards yes.
Yeah, I think so too. Just the way medicine and science has advanced.
It's gotten so much faster. these ACL and Achilles and these major injuries, guys can get back so much faster. I would lean towards yes, but I would doubt that he's ready to go for the start of training camp in little over 7 months. 615-737-1025 is the phone number if you want to text or call. We'll get to some of your texts in the final segment and much more. We'll talk a little bit about Phillip Rivers as well. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 1025 The Game. Next man up, 1025 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you. Final segment on this Monday. Chasing Big Joe coming up next. Titans and Chiefs coming up on Sunday. And again, very different Titans and Chiefs than a lot of people expected. The premium game for the Titans this year at home will feature Gardner Minshew for an eliminated Kansas City Chiefs team in Nissan Stadium. We'll continue to talk about that, some thoughts on Phillip Rivers, but first let's go back to our phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Caleb is on the line. Caleb, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
Hey guys, what's going on? Yeah, so I just wanted to kind of talk about the Jeffrey Simmons penalty there on the field goal.
Yeah.
It's like that kind of just in a sum ties up what the Titans are this year, right? Let's do something good, get a fumble, score a touchdown, and then go do some boneheaded thing and run into the tackle like their center. It's just ridiculous. I mean, my wife is sitting there watching it, and my daughter's too. My daughter's 13. She said, "I think we should rename the Titans to the Tennessee Trainwreck." I was like, that's about perfect, you know. So, but I think it just summed up the entire season right there. That whole, yeah, it was just it.
Yeah.
So
Thanks for the call, Caleb. And
yeah, man.
it is frustrating with Jeffrey Simmons of he does those things that you saw, strip sack, maybe changes the game, at least put the Titans back in a position where they were competitive in that game. He makes the play on the scramble drill as a defensive tackle to find space and catch a touchdown. But you're right, Caleb. It's the boneheaded plays like that it always comes back to with Jeffrey Simmons. Like, I want to give him all the flowers in the world because he has been great this year, new career high in sacks. He's become a leader in this locker room. We talked about it ad nauseum last week. But those stupid things pop up. And it's not for a lack of effort. It's not like he's trying to light up the center every single time on these field goals. But it's something that's happened so many times that he has to fix it. You can't keep hurting the team like this because, again, it's not a 15-yard penalty. That was a 3-point penalty and a 4-minute penalty yesterday for the Titans who were trying to come back in that game. Would they have? Probably not. They were down 31-17. I didn't envision the Titans coming back and tying that game at the end, but they really had no shot after that because you take a couple minutes off the clock and then you kick the field goal from 20 yards closer and it goes through. Now you're down 17 instead of 14. It's a 3-score game. The game's over. It's a play that just cannot happen. And Jeffrey Simmons, I think, would be the first one to tell you that, but he's got to put the words into practice and actually stop giving away these points because this is not the first time this has happened.
And it was after the big man touchdown too. So you create a little bit of good and then you go and you shoot yourself in the foot. And that's the things that have continually kept happening for the Titans this year that just there's really no excuse for.
Yeah.
And it just can't keep happening.
With Jeffrey Simmons, you can give him all the credit in the world for all the good he does, but there are just those boneheaded plays that pop up more often than they should. Before we wrap up the show, can't go through the entire 3 hours without talking more about Phillip Rivers yesterday. Exceeded my expectations, right? They were low, and it was not great from Phillip Rivers. But he got them to the lead in the final minute of that game on the road against Seattle. Did he have to do a whole lot? No. But Phillip Rivers, that's something that I don't think a lot of retired quarterbacks would ever do, is after 5 years away at 44 years old, pick it up 1 week and try and go back out there and be an NFL starter again. Did he look great? Absolutely not. But, credit to Phillip Rivers for doing something that a lot of guys out there I don't think would.
Hey, don't get it twisted. That's the most agile grandpa in NFL history right there.
That is true.
So, hey, well, I got so happy because I saw his touchdown live, and I got so happy just because it's such a such a great story.
The celebration from his teammates was great. That was awesome. You could tell it meant a lot to him to come back and do that.
The kids that he coaches back in high school, they had a watch party in Decatur, Alabama, and they were watching him throw his touchdown, and they just went nuts. And his post-game presser was even better. I don't know if you got the chance to see it.
Yeah, he said, I hope my family and the kids that I coach, I hope they can look at that and say that's a guy who wasn't scared. And I think you did. I did see that one of the big reasons that he might have done it was to save his health care. I guess you get 5 years after you retire, you get to stay on the NFL's health care. And with, double-digit kids, I'm sure healthcare costs are pretty expensive for Phillip Rivers. So he got in just under the wire to save his healthcare for another 5 years. We've got the Calebs going at it. We had Caleb on the phone line talk about the play from Jeffrey Simmons, the boneheaded mistake on the field goal. Caleb on the text line says that's really not a big deal. This team needs to lose. That penalty is irrelevant. He's been the best DT in the league. Who cares if he gets a dumb penalty from time to time? Caleb, that's a kind of a losing mentality, though. Of, yes, in that moment, did that cost them the game? No. But look back. I mentioned the one at the Bengals game 3 years ago. that did cost them that game, or at least a chance to go win that game. This team is hopefully not going to be irrelevant for the rest of Jeffrey Simmons' career. Yes, him being the best DT in the league is the most important part. And I'm not saying take away all of his accomplishments from this year because he's had a couple boneheaded penalties, but you hope that this team is competing at some point soon, and those penalties could end up being the difference between a win and a loss. He's got to figure it out before we get to that point. Because the Titans right now, sure, in a game where you're 2-11 and it doesn't really matter and you're down 14 points, you can kind of brush that under the rug. But if this team is ever going to be good again, you can't brush plays that cost the team points under the rug. And that was what that was yesterday. Jeffrey Simmons cost the team 3 points.
Can't have that loser mentality on this show.
Again, I will not root for the team to lose while they're playing. I'll continue to look at where they are. And yes, the best thing for this team is probably the number one pick, but the team is not trying to lose. And in that play, in that game, your team had momentum. You were only down 14. Still was a long way to go to even get back into that game. But that play was kind of the nail in the coffin for any chance the Titans had yesterday in Santa Clara. Again, in that game, not a big deal. But the Titans, they're going to be good again someday, you hope. And you can't let those things happen that cost your team points. That'll just about wrap things up for us here on the show today. Been a fun one. I do want to mention before we get out of here, Vanderbilt women's basketball tonight at Memorial Gym, taking on South Florida. Back after the exam week break, 9-0 on the season.
There we go.
I did get the alert during the show. Vanderbilt now 13th in the country, moving up a spot in the AP poll. So
is that the highest they've ever been?
No, they've been the number one team in the country before.
Okay.
Back when they went to the Final Four in the early 90s.
Gotcha.
But 13th in the country. They're taking on South Florida. South Florida, usually a very good team out of the AAC. Their head coach actually just left to become the head coach of the Dallas Wings before the season. So, again, 6:30 over there at Memorial Gym. Hope you can come out, cheer them on. I will always advocate, if you haven't seen Michaela Blake's play, it is must see. So get out there if you can. If not, I'll be on the air at 6:15 with the pregame coverage on 94.9 The Fan. 6:30 tip. Vandy back in action against the USF Bulls. That wraps things up for us today. Tomorrow, Nick Frazier will be on the show. Going to spend a lot of time on the college football playoff as we have hit the opening week of the college football playoff. Some games might be blowouts, but a couple of interesting ones. We'll go through all of it. We'll also continue to talk Titans as they prepare for the Chiefs on Sunday. Chase and Big Joe are coming up next. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to 102.5 The Game.